I know we ain't perfect. You're the best thing I ever had, but it ain't working. If there was a magic pill I knew could heal this hurt, I would drop a couple mil.
All right. Well, first I want to thank everyone for coming. We're excited to be doing this. It is Friday the 13th. Hopefully that doesn't cause any problems for us. Kind of worried about, maybe doing Facebook and Zoom at the same time here. Yeah, this is another one of our industry expert series webinars. We're excited to have today's guest, but before I jump in, I thought I'd do a little introduction for those who are new to 11. 11 is a music career center founded by 3 now somewhat retired musicians, somewhat still active, but I've been playing drums for several years. My co-founder Nick, who is behind the scenes today, is a singer-songwriter and a proponent of the college market. And then Steve, who's not with us today, is a DJ and actually a former touring keyboard player from Nashville. So he's now more on the hip hop side. So country and hip hop were his things. So what 11 does is we help musicians with becoming better entrepreneurs. We offer coaching, whether it's one-on-one or group coaching. We also offer co-working in the Madison area and hopefully in other places in the future. And then we also offer networking opportunities and events like this, free content, paid content. So we're basically out there to try and help musicians get a better grasp on the business side of things. We know as creative people, it's not always easy to switch to the other side of your brain, but that's what 11's here to help with. So today, our interviewer, or I'm sorry, I'm the interviewer. The person I'm interviewing today is someone you may or may not have heard of, but he has been around for a long time in the rock and roll space. He is a drummer, now a professional motivational speaker, if I got that right, and a music industry expert. You will see all of the accolades on the wall behind him when he gets on here. We are proud to have Sandy Gennaro, drummer from the Monkees, Cyndi Lauper, Joan Jett, Bo Diddley, Michael Bolton. I can go on, but I'm going to stop there so we don't spend all the time. Sandy, do you want to introduce yourself or promote anything you're working on right now?
Hi, I'm Sandy, and yeah, it's nice to be here, Matt. I appreciate the invite, and yes, I'm interested in sharing anything that any expertise I might have, being in the business for over a half a century.
That is an impressive collection behind you, and we can talk about some of them.
Yeah, well, first of all, I've been playing for over 50 years, and I'm still playing now. I still play here in Nashville. I live in Nashville now, and I play in a 70s, 80s cover band called Rock United, and also do some freelance gigs. And we're starting to gig here in Nashville, playing tomorrow night at a place called Bowie's, downtown Nashville. And I'm also, for the last 5 years, I've been motivationally speaking. I've been doing that for 5 years to corporate, to associations and conferences and stuff. And just about 2 months ago, I was onboarded to the very prestigious Vistage organization as a Vistage speaker. So I'm very, very happy about that. And so yeah, that's about the size of it right now.
Cool. Well, congratulations on joining them. You said now that you're playing out, how's Nashville been with the pandemic? Are you guys having some venues open then?
Well, the venues are open. I think that they're open to 50% capacity, and masks are strongly encouraged.
Gotcha.
So obviously, when I'm on stage playing, I don't wear one. When I'm mingling around the audience, the band is encouraged to wear one while we're just in close proximity to the people.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of a weird, everybody's experiencing the same weirdness at the same time and on different levels, but it's just a weird time, a very, very weird time. And I could wax on this for a lot of time, a lot of minutes, but it just takes a very, very thick skin and a very tenacity, your belief in yourself, your belief in what you're trying to do with your life. Because when a crisis like this happens, you have to get innovative. You don't crawl in a hole and
Mhm.
regret and worry. You have to get innovative about, an open new, it might be a positive thing in some ways,
Mhm.
just like we're doing now on Zoom and Facebook Live. I mean, we all took advantage of the virtual situation, so I believe that, this virus is not going to happen forever. We're going to get past it, and we're going to talk about it in the past tense eventually. But during this time, we just have to look forward and think positively as we can, and make do with what we have. And it's also a time to be appreciative of what we have and not regret what we don't have or what we can't do or where we can't go or where we can't fly or we can't have 50 people at Thanksgiving, and all of that. So, we just got to try to think of it as much as possible as a positive thing.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking every so often, my daughter was born right before this started. She won't even know her first year was this tainted, and I'm hoping she won't have to worry about it, when she starts to remember things. So,
Right, right.
yeah.
Well, my tip my hat to everybody that's going through this, especially with young children, having to virtually learn and working, these parents that are working remotely from home, the 8 hours a day, plus they have their kid in the next room trying to stay focused on a computer learning virtually. Plus, the parent has to be a mom, a teacher, and a wife at the same time and cook. And man, and the husbands too, going through this. I tip my hat. Luckily, I have one child, and she is 26, and she graduated for the University of Belmont University, and living on her own, self-supporting, working. She is the road manager for Leanne Womack,
Oh,
pre-COVID and post-COVID. So right now she has a job and working a day job in a restaurant, and so I'm very fortunate. My wife and I are very fortunate.
yeah. I'm glad she followed in the footsteps and stayed in music then. So,
Yeah, she's definitely, yeah, she's itching to get back on the road for sure.
I can't imagine the whole live and music industry is just itching to do something, I think.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you. But I did read today in the Post that when we do have a vaccine, they're going to start having concerts again. But the only caveat is, in order to get into the concert, you have to have proof that you've been tested and you're negative within 7 to 10 days, or you've had the vaccine. And if you have one of those two credentials, you can get in and enjoy a live rock show or a live concert of some sort. So, we're starting to get the sense where it's starting to starting to come around and turn the corner here, which again, you just got to set your sights to a time when it's not going to be around, and we're talking about it in the past tense.
Yeah. I think for us here, in the best place to be for the pandemic right now, and I put that, in a sarcastic light right now, but to be able to watch the rest of the world come back and know that this is our future and it's kind of slowly graduating closer to us. It's good to see everybody else come to kind of, that's where we're going to be in hopefully weeks or
Right,
months, not years. So,
right.
um,
But it
it's,
takes an effort. It takes effort on everybody. It's a team effort. We have to unite in that effort to try to suppress this. And we can't go around thinking that it's not happening, or you
mhm.
can't go around thinking, well, it's not going to happen to me. Oh, it only happens to people out there. But if your kid gets sick, or your father or mother or uncle or grandfather or grandmother gets sick, well, you know what? So, just take care and just wear the mask, for
Yeah.
crying out loud, crying out loud.
Your true feelings about this,
Right.
So, not to make the whole conversation about something so currently in your current situation, but I thought we'd move on and at least see this is what we're currently dealing with. But what prior to normal life, things that we miss. How did you initially get started in the music industry or music business? What was your first stepping stones?
Well, I got, hold on one second. I just got to grab something.
Sure.
How I got started in the music business. Well, that is a loaded question. At, um, at 3 years old, under the Christmas tree, I received this drum.
You still have it. That is
And I
impressive.
still have it with my little smiley face drawing on the head there.
Perfect.
But when I got that drum, I fell in love. I was able to hit things with a drum with wooden sticks and not be told to stop. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And from then on, I was always attracted to rhythm growing up, all through my childhood. And then when I was about 14, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, February 9th, 1964. And that changed my life. When I saw the audience, that's the first time I actually seen a drummer play, was Ringo on a drum set. Prior to that, I only heard from my older sister's rock and roll records. I heard what drums sounded like on record, or audio-wise, but never seen somebody play. And when I seen him play, and the music that they created, and the audience reaction, I said, I don't quite know what's going on there, but I want to be part of that.
I want
And
in.
I want in. And I always pictured myself not looking at visualizing myself at a drum set playing. I always visualize myself from the drum point of view, from Ringo's point of view, looking at the back of the three guys' heads in my
Yep.
band and the audience out there. And I always held on to that dream. And so that basically got started. Once I got the drum set, then I started playing. I took some lessons and was rehearsing in the basement of my mother's house. And someone knocked on the door and said, "Hey, were you just playing the drums down there?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Do you want to join a band? My cousin lives down the street and he needs a drummer for his band." And I said, "Sure." And he handed me the 45 of "I Want to Hold Your Hand" by the Beatles. And he said, "Learn this song. That'll be a good way to start." So I went ahead and learned that song, and joined that band, and we ended up playing graduation parties, all cover material. And my first band, called the Black and Blues, we consisted of drums, two guitars, and vocal, no bass, and everything was plugged into the same Ampeg Gemini 6 amp. The microphone and the two guitars were plugged into the same amp, and the amp stood in front of my bass drum to keep it from sliding.
No carpet yet, huh?
No carpet yet. So that was and no string around the bass drum and around my seat too. That was another way I kept my bass drum from sliding. Later on, that was more high tech than the amp in front of it.
I never even thought of that.
So anyway, that's basically, and I spent a good 20 years from the time I was 14, 15 till the time I was 24, 25, just toiling around in cover bands around New York. The graduation parties and the high school dances led to bars and clubs and all of that. And then that led to a small club tour around the Midwest. And then in 76, I moved to LA to get my first big break. And it didn't quite happen as I planned it, but I ended up getting my first big break, my first recording deal back in New York, with a band called Blackjack. And that was the band that Michael Bolton fronted. Bruce Kulick was the guitar player in the band, who went on to play with Kiss, and now he plays with Grand Funk Railroad. Jimmy Haslip was the bass player in that band, and he ended up being the MD won a Grammy with the Yellow Jackets. And then Michael went on to his solo career, and I went on to do what I do. So we all became, and all still very active in the music business all these years later. So the Black, then the dominoes kept falling. I could speak for another 2 hours about how it happened, but that was the first one. And then your first one, like your first credit card, your first major gig is the hardest one to get. But then once you get that, it makes the other ones come easier because you have a track record and you have a reference point, But you got to have a thick skin. You got to have a really, really thick skin, because it wasn't all dominoes falling in my favor. I mean, there was ripoffs. There was a time when I moved to LA, nothing was really, really happening at all. I was being ripped off. I was being promised certain tours and it would fall through. And not only just fall through inadvertently, but be lied to about about, hey, we want to book you for a tour coming. Because when I moved to LA, I promised myself that I would never play in a cover band for a living again. I wanted to now go to the next level and join an all original band. And it wasn't happening. So I was about to quit the music business. This was 1976. I was about to quit the music business, and I just prayed and cried. I was hurting myself physically, not cutting my wrist or anything like, but I was drinking a lot. I was getting high a lot because things weren't panning out like I did. And the thing that depressed me most is that I finally got an audition with a superstar, a guy named Rod Stewart. And the auditions were held in a studio that had backline provided, all the instruments provided. But I was so insecure in my playing at that point in time, I brought my own drum set to the audition and insisted on setting up my own drum set at the audition where everybody is waiting with the guitars on. It was a cattle call audition. So Tonight's the Night was the audition song, and you could play that song on a kick snare and hi-hat, slow shuffle. But insecure Sandy, brought his whole drum set and made Rod Stewart and the band wait for 30 minutes to set. And Rod makes the comment, hey, those drums better sound good, man. And he goes out and gets a cup of coffee. So I go, well, I blew this audition before I even played a note. I played the song right. I played it correctly, but, I didn't get the gig. So that's what led to my depression. I finally got my opportunity to play with a superstar, and I blew it. I blew it because of my erroneous actions, right? So the little caveat there is that I made friends when I moved to LA with Carmine Appice, who's a very famous drummer. It was one of my idols growing up, played drums in Vanilla Fudge, and he ended up playing with Ozzy Osbourne or whatever. So I befriended him and moving when I moved to LA, and he called me every once in a while, and he called me right after this Rod Stewart thing, and he goes, what's going on? So I told him about the Rod Stewart audition, and I said, hey, listen, Carmine, I didn't get the gig, man. First of all, can I use you as a reference? I got to do something to get a gig. He goes, sure, Sandy, use me as a reference. You're awesome, and I have your back. And I said, Carmine, you know what? You should go down and get that Rod Stewart audition. I said, you should get that gig because I don't think they found anybody yet. He goes, do you have management's number? So I gave him management's number. He goes down and gets the gig on my recommendation, not my recommendation, but I turned him on to the information, and he ended up being with Rod Stewart for like 2.5, 3 years. After that, did a bunch of records, co-wrote "Do You Think I'm Sexy," and it was a major gig for Carmine, and he acknowledges me in interviews the fact that I turned him on to that opportunity. So then I sit down and I cried myself to sleep night after night after night, and begging, praying for just give me a hint of what I should do next. Give me some inspiration of what I should do next. And I woke up the next morning without it was almost like being a puppet on a string. I went to the library, got a talent management directory. Billboard magazine put out talent management directory, and I sent resumes to 50 managers of bands that I really liked, and I didn't get any response except for one. And it wasn't even the manager. One of the resumes I sent was a Peter Grant, the manager to Led Zeppelin, manager for Led Zeppelin, and his address was he based in England, but all his U.S. mail went to the attorney's office, Led Zeppelin's attorney. The attorney, whose name is not even on the resume, opens the resume. And right at that time, he's putting a band together, rhythm section together around Michael Bolton's songs and Bruce Kulick's songs. And it's a yet unnamed band, but now they're getting interest from these labels. Hey, and the attorney was named Steve Weiss. He needs a drummer and a bass player now. He needs it to showcase this band with Michael's material. So my resume arrives at his office. It doesn't forward it to Peter. He opens it and sees, oh, Sandy, oh, drummer, but he lives in Los Angeles. No, I want somebody from New York. Turns the page to the references and sees Carmine's name. My only one reference was Carmine Appice. Steve Weiss, the attorney, used to handle Vanilla Fudge, Carmine's old band. He goes, oh, so his next call was Carmine. Who's this guy, Sandy? Carmine vouches for me. Next call, Steve Weiss's call was, hey, Sandy, I'm the attorney for Led Zeppelin. Do you want to come to New York to audition for this yet unnamed band? We're going to get signed to Polygram Records. And I thought he was lying. He goes, no. Don't hang up. You sent a resume to Peter Grant, didn't you? And I said, yes. He goes, well, I opened it. Don't ask me, is it a coincidence? No, it's not a coincidence. It happens. I have my belief on why it happens. Anyway, I flew to New York and got the gig. A couple of days later, we auditioned for Polygram and got signed to Polygram Records. I flew back to LA, signed to a 7-album deal, 2 albums guaranteed with Polydor Records, distributed by Polygram Records. So that was the first domino to fall. I found myself in the Criteria Studios in Miami in 1978, doing the record with Tom Dowd producing it, a legendary producer named Tom Dowd produced it. So late after the album was done, we're rehearsing for the Peter Frampton tour, which we did, and we're rehearsing for it. And I go out from the rehearsal room, and I'm at a soda machine, and I feel a tap on my shoulder, and the guy behind me goes, "Hey man, was that you playing drums in that studio?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You want to play on my record?" And he goes, "My name is Benny Mardones, and we're choosing material for my record." I go, "Well, I can't because I'm already in a band, Blackjack. We're rehearsing in there." No. I'm just as a freelance thing. Just play drums on my record. We'll pay you for the session, and then you can go back to your band. We'll set up the schedule. So I went, and it turned out to be Into the Benny Mardones, and I did their record, and off that record came the top 10 single, Into the Night. Top 10, 1980. And you've heard the song before many, many times. It's a classic rock song. Have you ever heard that song, Into the Night, Matt?
You know, I'm gonna have to look it up, but I probably have. So
You have. You have in an elevator. You've heard it in a supermarket. You've heard it in a hotel lobby. You've heard it in an airport. You've heard it in a restaurant, PA system. You've heard it. It's a classic rock song. One of the only songs that was a hit in 1980, and it was a hit in 1990, 10 years later.
Wow.
Twice, 2 separate times, Billboard Top 10. So from there, Polygram was Blackjack, Polygram was Benny, with Into the Night. Now I'm becoming friends with people that work at Polygram, with A&R people, and and I get a phone call from Jerry Jaffe, who at the time was an A&R person at Polygram, Polydor Records, and he says, "Hey man, I'm hearing that Pat Travers is going to be looking for a drummer soon. You should go. Don't tell him I told you. Don't tell management I told you. But here's the management's name and address. Give him a call, but don't play dumb, because they don't want anybody to know that there was going to be a shakeup." So anyway, I went down, met the manager. He says, "No, we're not going to do anything with the Tommy Aldrich, who was the drummer at the time. But here's a cassette of our live show. If you care to take it home and listen to it, nod, nod, wink, wink." So I went home not knowing whether I was ever going to get a call from Travers, but I started rehearsing his live show, and I ended up getting a call a couple of months later, went down and got that gig. So now I'm on a national stage. He was very big at the time, with Boom Boom, Out Go the Lights, and whatever. And we went on the road, headlining our own gigs, and opening for Aerosmith, opening for Ted Nugent, opening for Heart, opening for Blue Oyster Cult. And so that basically, who is this guy, Sandy, that's replacing Tommy Aldrich? Who is this guy? And so this kind of put me on the national rock and roll map, where now I started getting endorsements from drum companies and cymbal companies and whatever. So that sort of put me on the map. And then after that came Carmine Appice asked me to do a drum battle tour, which I did. That was great fun. And then I went on to do how I listen. Oh, I'm sorry. Every great gig in my life has been as a result of me helping somebody out, or me offering advice, or me being asked for something and I oblige, and not be the arrogant rock star. So now, fast forward now, I'm touring with Travers, and we're in Connecticut at a it was a very hot summer nights gig, and we get off stage at this gig, and we're in a real hurry to get out of the dressing room, and I was the last one out of the dressing room in a frantic hurry, and I'm rushing out. Everybody's gone on the bus already. I'm rushing out, and there's a guy in the doorway, a hippie-looking guy in the doorway with a pen and a camera, and I could have put the rock star hat on, or the arrogant rock star, and said, not said anything, just, hey, I'm in a hurry. I don't have time to sign anything. But I didn't. I put the Sandy hat on, and I engaged him. I said, hey, buddy, in the doorway with my stuff on my shoulder, hey, buddy, what can I do for you, man? I'm in a really, really big hurry. He goes, would you sign this, Sandy? I really think you're awesome. You're great, play great, blah, blah, blah. You sound, okay, what else? Would you pose for a picture? Sure. Takes out his Instamatic camera. This is 1983, by the way. 1982, no cell phones. Click. I go, hey, is that okay, buddy? Because I got to go. He said, no, one more thing, Sandy. I'm a bass player here in Connecticut. Can you help me out getting an audition for some gigs in New York? I said, Dave, I can't really turn you on to any auditions until I hear you play. But here's my home address, my home number. Here's my business card. Send me a cassette of you playing, and I'll listen to it, and I'll turn you on to some people in New York. This is your home number, Sandy? Your home address? Yeah, Dave, don't worry about it. Just send me a cassette. I got to go. He gave me a really big hug. I left the dressing room not knowing if I ever was going to hear from him again. And he sent me the cassette a couple of weeks later. Nothing really happened. 3 years later, he calls me and he goes, hey, Sandy, I'm managing this girl now. She's going to be the biggest thing in 1984. I want you to join her band. You'll be perfect for her band. She'll love you. I said, Dave, I can't join a baby band. I'm coming off a headline tour, an arena tour. And second of all, I can't go back to the beginning and share rooms again and all that. Sandy, you don't understand. She's going to be I'll take care of you financially. You may have to start out sharing rooms, but I'll take care of you. Come down and meet this girl. So I went down in the studio. They were still doing the first record. She hasn't released a record, and it turned out to be Cindy. So I walk in the studio and I hear some of the songs that they're recording and going to put out. I'm going, man, this is going to be a hit. So I ended up joining Cindy's band, and that was as a result of me spending 5 minutes in a doorway with that guy. Just reaching out to him and acknowledging him as another human being and not as a little fan or whatever. And what's the punchline of that? That was the biggest tour I ever did to that point in my career, ever. And in November of that tour, in November of '84, I met the woman that I'm still married to today. So we started seeing each other. She was from Charlotte, North Carolina. I met her when we played at the Charlotte Coliseum. We saw each other long distance for about a year. She moved up to New York in '85. We got married in 1990. We had our first child in 1994. And here we are today, since the day we met, 36 years later. And sometimes I think about, hey, what if you would have blew by Dave in the doorway and been, anxious to get on the bus to have that cold beer or, whatever, or concerned that your road manager is going to yell at you for being late on the bus and just blew by that guy. Mm-hmm. Where would your life be? So those are two of my situations where I helped Carmine out. Carmine helped me out. Sure, Sandy, use my name as a resume, and I pray and I visualize and I ask for inspiration, and it comes to me and I act on the inspiration.
Uh-oh.
Who's frozen?
Oh, I think you were. There you go. You're back now.
Oh, okay. Oh, my internet connection is unstable. Wow. Okay. Are we back?
Yep, we're good now.
Okay, good. Very good. So did you get all of that?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope so.
Yeah. It was only about, I'd say maybe 20 seconds that you.
Okay, good. Okay.
But okay, that is awesome. Yeah, I think we could all listen to you for like hours. That's fun.
And I can talk to you for hours.
That's why you speak now, right? Um, well, just going back to like, okay, so a lot of people in the local scene, who we serve and everything, they're getting into this whole thing. They're trying to, do we do a DIY? Is it still pay to get signed? That kind of stuff. They're going through like this whole mental process that you went through. How does some of this stuff apply to whether there's a pandemic or not? Whether you're going to go through depressions, you're going to go through highs and lows, you're going to need to be energized and motivated. And so what would you say to like some of the musicians that might be riding the exact same roller coaster where today, with the internet, it's gonna be a little different because they're gonna be all DIY or just there's gonna be a lot of people just doing it on their own with people. They're gonna be staying local but going globally. How do you kind of apply your story to that kind of, a modern age concept?
It's difficult because it's a totally different music industry now
It
with
is.
with the internet. It's totally different. I mean, you can make a record if you have a keyboard and a microphone. You can make a record in your living room. I mean, with GarageBand. I mean, so it's a totally, my advice to musicians nowadays in this day and age, especially when you have something like the virus that's happening,
Mm-hmm.
is if you're a songwriter, write. You've been given the gift of time now. So don't look at it as I got a boredom, I got just if you're a drummer, go on your drum set and practice.
Mm-hmm.
Practice, put CDs on, put songs on from the internet that you love and whatever. Take virtual lessons. There is a lot of instructors that are giving virtual lessons, and I'm one of them. I give virtual drum lessons. So the idea is to try your best to keep a positive attitude. You try your best to try to keep a positive outlook about what's coming,
Mm-hmm.
and look at the time that you've been given as a gift to, become better at your instrument. Keep writing songs because it only takes one great song to launch your career. So you might write 100 of them, but maybe 5 of them you're willing to play for other people. But make that 5, 10. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And just try to take advantage of the time as best way you could in a positive way. And that's why I got 2 drum sets set up there, and and they permanently set up in my studio, and I go and I put some Hendrix records on, or Led Zeppelin, or whatever music you want to play.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a certain genre that you're challenged with, you're not so efficient at Latin rhythms, well, learn it. You know what I mean? We never, ever stop learning. We should never, ever halt the desire to stop learning. We should always learn, and that's the best advice. And also, as I mentioned before, you have to. It wasn't. I mentioned the dominoes, and the dominoes didn't fall one after the other. And the phone rings, and there's a lot of downtime in between those good phone calls, and you have to develop a thick skin
Mm-hmm.
because there are people in this business that are unscrupulous. They're a minority, but you will run into people that are out for the money, and they're take advantage of musicians. And the situation that you have with 11, turn it up to 11, where you're coaching musicians. I wish I had that, because when I was growing up playing in those bar bands and high school dances, I used to say to myself, well, I'm an artist. I'm an artist. I'll leave the business to my business manager when I become big. I don't want to deal with the business now because I'm an artist. Well, that is a mistake. And the first tour I've done where I hadn't been paid in 20 weeks or something, it made me realize, well, maybe I shouldn't have signed that piece of paper without reading it. So you have to have a really, really thick skin and be prepared for not only the highs, but the lows, because the whole, my 52 years wasn't 52 years of bliss. There was a lot of downtime in between there, and a lot of but you know, the tide goes out,
Mhm.
and when the tide is out, it sucks because you're wondering, you're looking at your calendar going, man, it's blank. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? You know, I look at my calendar for the spring, for February, March, April, crickets.
Yeah.
But you got to have faith because the tide goes out, but you have to maintain that effort to work. You know what I mean? You can't sit back and go, okay, I'll wait for the tide to come in. No, you got to maintain that effort. And that effort, in order to maintain that effort, you got to have faith that good things are going to happen. You have to have belief in yourself. You have to be excited about things that haven't happened yet.
Mhm.
You have to have a tenacious effort in going towards your goals, even in light of the storm around you, if you will. You know what I mean? So it goes. I work off an acronym, and you've heard this acronym, Matt, in the conference that I did. Hi, honey.
Hi.
Come here. You want to say hello to my audience? This is the woman.
That looks like hail.
This is the woman that I met at the Charlotte Coliseum in
We
1984.
heard the story.
I look like crap.
This is my wife, Sherry, my beloved,
I
and well, this is Matt.
just got home from work,
Well, welcome home.
and I work in a restaurant, and I'm in back of house, so hence.
Gotcha. I understand.
Love you, honey. So that is the reason that I'm sitting here with all those records behind me, because of that woman right there.
It has
I
nothing to
love
do
you
with you.
too.
It is always the woman behind the man. I get it.
I'm telling you, man, because you know, we talk about the tide going in and out. We
Mhm.
talk about the roller coaster going up and down, but she's been with me in the high. She's come and seen me in arenas and, you know, Broadway and all of that. But she's also there when I'm looking on the phone in my office for 6 hours a day, looking for a gig or looking for a speaking gig, you know, and she's the constant. She is the common thread. She's consistent through so listen, another advice to all the musicians out there, you know, when you have a relationship, whoever the relationship is with, make sure you value that relationship, because it's very, very, very important to work as a team. Because none of us do it on our own. We're not autonomous beings.
Yes.
We all have a team around us, whether it's your wife or whether it's your two partners at 11. You know, we all have to do it as a team, and you know, no man is an island.
Mhm.
That some expression, whatever.
There you go. No, we say it takes a village, locally, globally, to raise music, to raise a musician.
Absolutely,
Not
but
just kids.
you know, but the main thing is, again, I repeat it because it's important. You got to have a thick skin, and if people treat you unscrupulously on a business level, and you try your best to rectify the situation, don't just be a pushover and be kicked around like a piece of dirt. Like, believe in what you know your constitution is, and stand up for yourself. But you don't, you know, but you stop at a certain point where you're hitting your head against the wall trying to reconcile this unscrupulous business situation. But if it doesn't happen, you just pull the shade down on the situation and
Mhm.
move on. Okay, you can't kick a dead horse. Move on, and don't let that interfere with your goal. Don't let that affect your tenacity. And as you know, I work out off an acronym, Matt, called BEATS, and it stands for belief, enthusiasm, attitude, tenacity, and service. Combine all those together, the most important of which is belief, attitude, and service. The enthusiasm, if you have those three, the enthusiasm will come because you're happy about the events, the result of events that haven't happened yet. It's a positive outlook towards the future. Your attitude towards people, your attitude towards other people, your attitude towards the guy in the doorway, is the attitude towards the guy or the woman checking your groceries at the supermarket. It's your attitude about life in general. And the spirit of service to others, the feeling, the spirit of how could this person that I'm in front of right now, how could I make him feel better off for having crossed my path? You know, how can I bring a smile to his face? How can I help him or her? You know, it's that attitude. And again, I am proof positive that everything, you know, the records behind me, all the good fortune that's come to me in my life has been based around having a constitution of belief. And we gotta, first and foremost, and this is not a religion class, but you gotta believe in a power greater than ourselves at work in our lives, because you treat people good, positive attitude, service to others, and you know what? The universe or the higher power likes that and puts opportunities in front of you. Who made me think about going to the library and getting the Billboard magazine talent management directory for those management addresses?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that idea came from, but it was after weeks and weeks of praying for a sign. Please give me a sign. Please give me a sign. What should I do? Because I'm about to throw the drumsticks in the fireplace. Done. So you get this idea, but I acted on it. That's the key.
Yeah.
You know, when you get the inspiration, when you get the sign, when you have the guy Dave in the doorway, you got to act on it and notice it. You can't just nah. Oh, nah, that'll never happen. You get an idea to call somebody. Did it ever happen to you, Matt, where you get an idea to call somebody you haven't seen in a long time? You call them. Oh, Matt, I was just thinking about you.
Weird.
You know what I mean? It's like, does that stuff coincidence? Some people may think it's coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence. You think it's a coincidence that Steve Weiss, Led Zeppelin's attorney, used to handle Carmine Appice, my only name on my resume? That's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
There's the behind the curtain in Oz, there's a guy with a little joystick. Oh, okay. Matt and Sandy. Oh, okay.
It's a good way
You know what I mean? I mean, I do a Between the Waves conference. We meet, and now I'm helping you. Hopefully I'm shedding a little help on the 11 on your business. You know what I mean? And who's to say what happens in the future? You know.
It's all great ways to look at it. Everything's connected. Nothing's by chance, or
nothing's chance.
Yeah. So everything that you've done, like going back to your, I'm an artist, not a business person. How has all of your artist side translated into becoming like the business motivational speaker? You kind of went to the business side. So how'd you make that switch?
Well, that was
some of the questions we have. So.
Well, that was a gradual switch. I mean, you know, when I realized I made mistakes, I should have read that contract. I didn't know what I was, you know, and when I made that first mistake, and then it became, and things got, you know, when the first recording contract came, of course I had an attorney look at it, whatever. But then I started getting interested, and what turned my eyes to detail of music business detail is I taught at the Drummers Collective in New York, the Collective, and that's an accredited music school in Manhattan. For those that don't know, they're still in existence today, and I taught there from 1987 until I moved to Nashville in 2014. And while I was there teaching private lessons in rhythm section, I used to get questions from my students. I was the rock and blues double bass guy. You know, you have a jazz guy, a rudiments guy, Afro-Cuban guy, a Latin guy, this and that, reggae. But I would get students and they would say, hey, Sandy, somebody asked me to do a demo. What should I charge for the demo? Hey, Sandy, I got asked to do this 2-week run. Who pays for my drumsticks when I'm on tour for an artist? Who pays for my drum heads? What's per diem? What's the difference between a writer royalty and a publishing royalty? How do you get endorsements? I used to get these questions all the time. So I went to the director of the school and I said, you know, John, I'm getting these questions. We need to have some sort of music business curriculum here going along, because people graduate, they come to New York from all over the world to learn music. A lot of them stay in New York or go back home, and they're involved in the music business. So these people don't know what to charge for a demo, or if they're asked to do a gig, what to charge, whatever. Well, Sandy, come to me tomorrow on a legal pad of what you would include in that curriculum, music business curriculum. So I went home that night, 2 legal pads, one as a band member, one approaching the music business as a independent contractor. And I wrote, as a band member, how do I get funding for my demo? This guy wants to record our demo, but he wants half the publishing. Should we give it to him? Whatever. And then on the other side, I have, as an independent contractor, of the endorsements, whatever. And I brought it to the director the next day, and he says, great, we're going to start the curriculum. And it was inaugurated in their 2-year program where I taught. Every semester I gave 2 classes, 2 hours each. So I learned a lot about the business in researching my classes, ASCAP, BMI, publishing, whatever, copywriting a name, what if you guys are in a band and one guy leaves, who gets the name, all that stuff. So, and then it was then where I encouraged people to pay attention to what they're signing, for crying out loud, at the very least. So that was the thing. Now, if I may say so, check this out. Now, in the spirit of service, this was now 1986. I've already done Cyndi Lauper. I've already toured with a European band named Kraft that was open for Queen in Europe. That was a major tour that I did. I was grateful for that opportunity. And I'm sitting home and I get a call from this complete stranger. His name was Jerry Renino. And he says, hey, Sandy, I road manager. I'm a bass player and musical director for this band called the Tokens, a 50s oldies band. They sang the song Lion Sleeps Tonight. Okay. We're doing a gig this Saturday. This is Wednesday. They're doing a gig this Saturday. And I need a drummer. My drummer bailed out on me last night. He goes, I can't pay you that much. You got to bring your own drums. It's 2 hours away from your house. The sound check is at 3. The show ain't till 9. A lot of downtime. Do you want to do the gig? I said, no, I don't want to do the gig. He goes, Sandy, but you know what, Jerry, I'll help you out, because he sounded real sincere. Again, I have never met this guy. So I end up doing the gig, and which I thought was way below me, but I went ahead and helped this guy out. And the gig went great. He was a great guy. I met Jay Siegel, the singer of Lion Sleeps Tonight. I ended up doing some gigs for him subsequently. So he says, oh, Sandy, great, man. I got your number. We'll play together again. This is Jerry, the musical director. So I left the gig. Maybe 6 months later, he calls me and he goes, hey, Sandy, I just got the MD gig with the Monkees. You want to do that gig? The reunion tour, 1986, 87. I said, sure. So I did that, and that led to all of those Monkees reunion tours. Okay, I was a big fan of the Monkees growing up. I used to watch the TV show in the 60s. Now I'm playing with them, which is huge. I thought it was great. Now, all right, so that was very lucrative because it was not one tour. I did almost every one until Davey passed, okay, in 2012. Plus, Davey did solo tours in between. Mickey did solo tours in between, which I was a part of both of them. Very lucrative. Now, is that the payback for helping that guy out on that Tokens gig? It was enough, but it wasn't. It wasn't all the payback because now I'm rehearsing for the first Monkey tour at the Collective, because this is before I started teaching there, because it was a school that rented their rooms out in the evening so you can rehearse. And I lived in an apartment in Manhattan, so I couldn't rehearse in my apartment. I'm prepping for the Monkey tour. And I walk out of the room and pay for my time at the Collective. The owner is sitting there. I'm giving him my money. And he goes, what were you rehearsing in that room? And I said, I'm going on the road with the Monkees. He goes, hey, man, did you ever think about teaching? You sound really good. I said, no, I never thought about teaching. He goes, you want to try it? I said, sure. So he goes, get in touch with me a couple of weeks before you get off the road, and I'll set you up with some students. And all right, so I did that, and that started a 27-year teaching career. Okay, so as you know, Matt, as a dad, and as a family man and as a musician yourself, in between tours, there's downtime, and you sometimes have to go get a straight gig. You have to get a day job in order to keep the lights on. In between, when the roller coaster is down here, you got to get something to keep the lights on. So that was my day job. I started teaching at the Collective, and then my teaching roster grew and grew and grew. And I was an independent contractor, so I can tell them when I'm available. I wasn't locked into a schedule or whatever. I'm not available for this amount of time. They take me off the. When I come back into time, okay, I'm available. They put my students back on. So every time I was in town in New York, I had a gig. Okay, does it end there? The payback? No, because while I'm at the Collective, I was commissioned to do instructional videos. And it wasn't one of these hotshot Steve Gadd, Simon Phillips videos. I made my instructional video and I called it Drum Basics. And it was for kids that were thinking about playing drums, but they weren't sure. And the VHS tape at the time was only $12.95. It wasn't $40. It wasn't. So that became very, very successful, the instructional video. And later on, I wrote some books in conjunction with the Collective. So being involved with the, a nationally, internationally known drum school or music school was very, very helpful. And I became involved in that because I was rehearsing for the Monkey Tour there. And the owner heard me. And why was I rehearsing for the Monkey Tour there? Because I helped a guy out months earlier doing a favor for him. So don't ever turn down an opportunity to help somebody. And you don't do it for any payback. Oh, gee, I wonder who he's going to know. I wonder who, I don't do this with you, Matt, thinking that you're going to turn me onto a gig. I mean, I'm doing it because I like you and you asked me and I met you at the Royce thing, BTW. So, but if you do that and you help people when you can and you have the wherewithal to help people, or, I get stuff all the time where, hey, Sandy, on Facebook, would you mind if I send you something, would you mind autographing for me? Sure. I never turn an opportunity. Listen, I kind of like when I in the mail the other day, I got 3 CD covers. Hey, would you mind sending this? Can you see up there in the corner there? Up there in the corner, those are signs that people in the audience say, hey, Sandy, can I have a drumstick? Hey, Sandy, throw me a drumstick, blah, blah, blah. And I go over and I oblige. I don't blow them off. Listen, if somebody is interested in me enough to want my friggin' drumstick, that's cool, man. Yeah. And watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan and watching Stars and whatever, and I'm going to myself when I was younger, man, it must be cool for somebody to want you to sign their name. You know what I mean? Somebody asks me for an autograph. I'm digging it, I kind of like it. And I was given that opportunity for people wanting to be next to me or want my drumstick, or, hey, Sandy, would you do a shout out for this cancer thing? Hey, Sandy, whatever. I was given that gift, and I want to share that. Whatever I can do to help anybody, I'm there. I'm totally there. So I'm going to wrap this. I'm going to wrap not wrap up, because you can ask any other questions. I probably answered any question that any fan might have had between now and doomsday. But thank you very much. It's great attitude. Throwing a drumstick. I showed you those. Okay, I'm in 2015. I'm playing San Diego Stadium or San Diego Arena with Pat Travers. I went back with him later on. I was with him in the early 80s, went back with him in 2010, 2015. So when I'm playing the encore, I'm looking at people in the first row who is going to be the recipient of my drumstick, because when I'm done playing, when people are applauding, I'm tossing drumsticks to the audience. I see a handicapped person. Okay, we finished playing. I throw a drumstick to this handicapped woman in the first row, in a wheelchair. The guy next to her reaches out and intercepts the drumstick. What does Sandy do? I could have just went by thinking about the cold beer that's waiting for me in the dressing room, but no, I went back and I went, no. So he gave it to the handicapped person, and I gave him another one, which he was happy. The next day, the husband sitting on the other side of the wheelchair woman sends me a Facebook message. Hey, man, can I have your phone number? Sure. Gave him my phone number, called me up. Hey, Sandy, listen, I'm the husband of the person in the wheelchair. You have no idea what you did for her attitude. She was nearly in tears on the way home. She wanted to put the drumstick in a shadow box with your picture, whatever. He goes, I'm coming to Nashville to speak. Would you, can I thank you in person? Can you meet me for a cup of coffee? Again, I had the choice, the fork in the road. Should I blow him off or should I, no, okay. I'll meet with you. So I met with him when he came to Nashville. He's a professional motivational speaker, and he had a gig in Nashville. I met him at a Starbucks prior to his gig, and he asked me how I got Cindy's gig, how you got Joan's gig, how you got this and that. And I told him the Dave in the Doorway story, and he tells it, fast forward, tells it during his presentation. It got a good reaction. So at this point in time, he kind of gets the sense like you're getting now, Matt, that I have no problem speaking in front of people.
No.
She laughs inside. So he says, hey, Sandy, come to FedEx in a couple of weeks. I'll give you a couple of minutes. I'm doing an all-day seminar there. I'll get permission to have you as my guest. Tell this Dave in the Doorway story yourself. So I went to FedEx, told the Dave in the Doorway story to the future leaders of FedEx. And it got a really good reaction, the Dave in the Doorway story. Walking out of FedEx, he says, hey, Sandy, you got a career as a motivational speaker. That's a very, very powerful story. And I don't even know half of your stories. And but based on that, you have a speaking career waiting for you, and I'll help you any way you can, any way I can. So that started my speaking career. So now, all of a sudden, when I put my head on a pillow like 7, 8 years ago, going, hey, I wonder what I'm going to do when I retire. Or I wonder what I'm going to do when I'm 75 and I'm too old to go on the road with a rock and roll band. So now I have reaching out to that guy, the Tokens bass player, that set me up with my day gig during my whole life. That was what kept part of it, what kept my lights on in between tours. Now being nice to somebody and throwing a drumstick to a woman in a wheelchair led to what I'm going to be doing, what's going to keep my lights on, and sharing this message with the hope that people will act in that way, reach out. It's a positive message, and it's a message that everybody should heed and practice in their own lives, and things will happen good for you.
Agreed.
All right, I'm going to shut up now, Matt.
It's all right. There's always this worry where you're like, you're not going to have enough material. There's no way. But you know what? I'm going to give it to you. So I did have one question. You probably saw it too. Going back to the students that you had at the Drum Collective, do you know if any of your students went on to play for bigger groups?
Well, I not really household name groups. That's a good question, by the way. But I did give lessons to this actor named Matt Dillon, who had a part coming up in a movie where he was asked to play a drummer. So he just needed a drum lesson, not to learn how to play the drums, but how to look like he can lip sync. Like, he was going to be asked in the movie to lip sync to a track. Gotcha. So I taught him that, and I also taught one of the owners, or now a former owner of the New York Mets. And my most notable student, if you want to call him that, was I tutored Peter Criss of Kiss.
That's notable enough.
This is recent, like maybe in the early 2000s, when Peter came back into the band with Ace. After he had left originally, came back into the band. Now they're doing this Australian symphony gig with the Australian Symphony, playing a lot of songs that they haven't played as Kiss. And I was good friends, still am good friends with their manager, Doc McGee, his name is. And Doc called me and says, hey, Sandy, Paul Stanley wants to do a bunch of songs that Peter's never played before. And he has these songs demoed up with Eric Singer playing on them. Eric Singer is is the current drummer with Kiss, who's a longtime friend and collaborator with Paul Stanley. So Eric Singer, with all due respect to Peter Criss, Eric Singer is like kind of a drummer's drummer. You know what I mean? He's he knows technique. He knows how to read. So Doc tells me very delicately. He says, "Just I'm going to send you a CD of all those songs. Try to interpret those Eric Singer drum parts so Peter can play them." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Try to produce, help Peter play these songs, basically tutor him on how to play these songs. So that's what I did. I went over. We had a couple of. I didn't just go over and show up with a drum set. We had some conference calls. We had some whatever, but I show up at Peter's house and with a drum set, and we had 2 drum sets set up face to face, and I had the CDs, and I worked on all the CDs prior. I had 2 sets of headphones going out, and me and Peter played. He was just awesome. It turns out that he's Italian, and it turns out we know a lot of people from the same area of New York. We're both he's a little older than me, but both we traveled in the same circles. I saw Kiss at their first gig at a place called the Coventry in Queens. You know, they had really, it was kind of really basic makeup kind of thing, but it was one of their first gigs. So we had a lot in common in that. So he was my most notable student. I didn't teach him how to play the drums, but I kind of tutored him to play this one Australian symphony concert. And Gene Simmons actually thanked me because he actually went to those rehearsals, Peter did, and he was prepared. He was all warmed up because in the previous couple of weeks he was working with me, you know. So the band appreciated the fact that Peter was prepared, and the rehearsals went very well. And Peter called me from Australia like 2 a.m. saying, "Hey man, it worked out really good. Thank you so much, Sandy. I appreciate it." Blah blah blah. So that was cool. But I can't recall anybody that I taught that went on to play with a band that your audience would have heard of.
Okay.
Some of them are still playing. I mean, a lot of them, and some of them still keep in touch with me because I offer myself online. If you have any questions or whatever, if you want one of the lessons I gave you, I'll scan it and send it to you, whatever. So I'm always at service to my former students.
Very cool. Well, I have a couple more in the chat. The rest of them that came earlier, I could send to you afterwards, and we can kind of include them maybe like in an article or something, or at least get them back to them after the event. But just one big one. So it's important to understand that the music business is a relationship business or a relational business, and you've been a shining example of that. Do you feel like the younger musicians today fully understand that idea?
What the younger musicians today have to really, really understand is the fact that I have never ever gotten a gig by quote unquote the stereotypical way of networking. Sending your songs, sending your resume, sending your, the resume that I sent to Peter Grant, but that was an extenuating circumstance. Mm-hmm. But the whole idea of networking and going, hey, if you ever need a drummer, hey, we'll go up to a band, go see a band, and go up to the band during a break and go, hey, if you ever need a drummer, whatever. My advice is, it's all relationships, as you said. It's all about, people recommending you, people, you doing a favor for somebody, filling in for somebody, and so my advice to musicians when I get asked this question is to go to as many open mic nights as possible. Go to every sit-in, any kind of jam situation as much as you possibly can. And then you bring your card or bring, you have your phone or whatever. And afterwards, instead of saying, hey, if you ever need a gig, call me. If you ever hear of a gig, call me. Say, if I can ever help you. If I can ever help you in any way, let me know.
Thinking about
and that's
yeah.
Yes. And that's it creates a different slant. It's not like, hey, what could you do for me? Mm-hmm. The idea is like, hey, if I can ever do anything for you, let me know. Here's a way to get in touch with me, or take my name down on your phone. I'll put my number in your phone or whatever. and just maintain a positive belief in yourself. That's all, and in what you do. Now, how is that belief in yourself legitimate? How is that belief in your playing legitimate? Is that you have to have the work ethic to make sure, if you're a drummer, that make sure you can play with a click, and make sure you play in time, and make sure you fit the job description. You know what I mean? You know, it's not going to drop out of the sky, and the phone ain't going to ring by accident or by a miracle. It's based on your actions. Your actions produce reactions. And that's a law of the universe. There's no, you know, it's cause and effect, action, reaction. There's nothing that you do for somebody that never goes unpaid. In other words, it always goes rewarded. It's somehow, and there's no debt that will never be unpaid either. In other words, if you do something negative, or you steal, or you lie to somebody for your own gain, well, you're going to pay that debt eventually. You know, you're going to pay it, and it's not up to us to decide how it's paid, but it's paid. The universe will make sure you pay that debt. And it goes conversely the other way. You do something good for somebody, and it may happen 5 years later, 10 years later, but it will come back. Hey, yeah, I remember when you helped me out, whatever, you know. So, yeah.
All karma.
It's, you know, it's an often used expression, Matt, but it's totally true, man. It's totally true. And there's no reason for me to profess the truth of that if I haven't lived it myself. I'm a living example of that. Totally.
Very well. This has been more than amazing. I know everyone here has been super appreciative of your time today. I know we have a few other questions, but just in the interest of everyone's time, I can send them to you afterwards, and we can follow up with them. So, but yeah, everyone got a lot of things.
Well, is there anybody on now that wants to? Is there anybody on now that's got to go, or do anybody wants that question answered now? I have some time if you want.
Hey.
I mean, it's up to you, Matt. You're the captain of the ship, but
Sure.
you know, if someone is on there now and they have a question, I don't have a problem with spending a couple more minutes.
I think we got all the ones that were pretty much. Well, let's see. Let me just look here. I think we could probably do one more here. Along the same notes of the young musicians, do you encourage, if you're working with other musicians or younger musicians, do you encourage younger musicians to shoot for being a superstar, or do you encourage them to simply consistently work on their craft and be kind to others to find opportunities? Which I think you may have kind of already addressed on that, but
yeah, yeah, you don't do it. You don't do it for the money. You don't do it for the records behind me. You don't do it for the accolades. You don't do it for the chicks. You don't do it for any other extraneous reason. You perfect your craft, and you know, your work ethic. Be the best that you could be at your instrument, or your writing, or your singing, or whatever it is, and the rest of it will take care of itself. You continue on that road of consistency, working at your craft, being on the phone, getting together with other people, either virtually or, you know, when things calm down, get together live and play with as many different people as possible, create new relationships, even if it's a phone call or an email or a text message or whatever. But don't do it for the money, and don't do it to be a rock star, because you know, you're throwing darts at a dartboard in a dark room if you do that.
that's why I got washed up. No.
But yeah, you do it because it's what you do, and it's what you were born to do. And that's what I look at this. And, you know, and it's a constant reminder of me sitting under the Christmas tree when I was 3 years old, banging on that thing. And it show, you know, and another attribute too, and it could be where the BEATS, the attitude, you could also, in addition to attitude, the A could stand for appreciation, you know, because you look at, there's always things to be thankful for. You know what I mean? There's a lot of crap that's going on that you could worry about, and you
Mhm.
could be, oh shit, this sucks, whatever. But there's always things to be thankful for, or people to be thankful for in your life. And if you show an appreciation, you know, it's just like if somebody helps you, Matt, and you show your appreciation to that person for helping you, well, then a person in the future is more willing to help you,
Mhm.
because you're coming from a good place. And you know, and that's the way the universe is. If you reach out to people, the universe is willing to help you, you know what I mean, and put opportunities, and you have no idea where these opportunities come from, or that they ever existed. It's an amazing, I mean, there's a few more stories that I'm not going to get into, but it's like crazy. How did that happen? You know,
Yeah.
so you got to have a faith in the unknown, and a positive. You know, I look at the future as you look under the Christmas tree when you were a little kid, and 5 in the morning you get up, your parents are not up yet, or you'll peek in the dark living room under the Christmas trees, and all these Christmas presents are wrapped, but you don't know what's in them.
You're taking me back.
Right? But you don't know what's in them, but
Yeah.
you know there's something good there. And you know, when your parents get up and it's time to rip open the package, it's going to be a happy time. You know, but you don't know what's in those boxes. And that's the way I look at the future. You don't know. We don't know what tomorrow, next year is going to bring, but we got to think about a positive anticipation of things or events that haven't happened yet. We have a choice. And that's the only thing we have full control over, is what we think and how we think. That's the only thing we have total control over in our lives. Everything else is out of our control. So think right and plant the positive seeds in that brain and water them with constant thought about those seeds, and a nice positive result will happen. Just like a plant, when you water seeds, the plant grows.
Mhm.
And that's what our thoughts are. They manifest themselves in your life.
Well, I will take that, because right now, with everything going on COVID related, you know, I can apply that to several areas myself. And I know some people on here can also apply it in the same way. So.
Awesome. And if anybody out there listening, or listening on the repeat or the replay or whatever, you can always reach out to me, Sandy at sandygennaro.com, 2 N's and 1 R. My website is sandygennaro.com. Email me, Facebook, Sandy Gennaro, Facebook, Sandy Gennaro Speaks, Instagram, Rock and Roll Thought Leader, Instagram, Sandy Gennaro. There's several ways to get in touch with me. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any other further questions or comments about this or whatever.
Will do. We'll include all this with the final product too, so make sure everyone has access to it. So
good. And I look forward to seeing everybody in Madison at the next BTW, Between the Waves conference. And my friend Roy Elkin, where are you, Roy? Are you on here? If not, Roy, I send my regards to you, man. I miss you, and I look forward to seeing you up in Madison whenever the good Lord allows.
I will make sure he knows it, whether he was here or not,
Oh,
or at some point that you just put that positive vibe out. He'll hear about
There
it.
you go. Awesome.
Well, again, it's been a great few weeks building up to this, and we appreciate it. I have nothing else to say. So
Anytime, man. I appreciate it too. If anything else I can do for you, you let me know.
Will do. I may take you up on that sooner than you think. So.
Okay, awesome.
Well, thank you, Sandy.
Thank you very much, Matt.